Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Yes.
This time we're tackling a book
Mm-hmm.
that's practically a legend in personal finance.
Right.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
Okay.
You probably heard of it.
Yeah.
Maybe even seen it on your friend's bookshelf.
Yeah.
But today, we're going beyond the hype and diving straight into the introduction to see what makes this book tick.
You know what's really interesting about this book is how it challenges the traditional idea of where we learn about money.
Okay.
Kiyosaki argues that it's not necessarily in school,
Right.
but at home within our families. And those lessons can shape our entire financial outlook,
Yeah.
for better or for worse.
Okay, so Kiyosaki actually grew up with two father figures,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
His own dad, who he calls Poor Dad,
Yes,
and then his best friend's dad, who he refers to as Rich Dad.
that's right. And it's not that one was a millionaire and the other was destitute.
Right.
Both dads had successful careers,
Okay.
but drastically different views on money.
Got it.
Poor Dad, despite having a PhD and impressive credentials,
Wow.
believed in the classic path. Work hard, get a good job, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
But Rich Dad, who didn't even finish high school, saw things totally differently.
Interesting.
He was all about financial independence and building assets.
And their views really were night and day, weren't they?
It is.
Like the love of money is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
Versus
Yeah.
the lack of money is the root of all evil.
Yeah,
That's a pretty stark contrast.
it is. And Kiyosaki uses these contrasting perspectives
Okay.
to illustrate how our mindset around money can impact our entire financial journey.
Right?
Poor Dad emphasized job security and a steady paycheck,
Okay.
while Rich Dad focused on creating wealth that works for you even while you sleep.
I'm already seeing how this challenges conventional thinking. Like, we're so often told to get a good job with benefits,
Exactly.
but that's not necessarily the path to true financial freedom, is it?
Exactly. And this is where the concept of financial independence comes in. It's about having the financial resources to make choices based on your values and goals,
Yeah.
not just out of necessity.
Right.
And Rich Dad, even though he didn't have the fancy degrees, understood this deeply.
So would you say that this book is really more about shifting your mindset?
That's a great question. And I think it's both.
Okay.
Because Kiyosaki argues that before you can master the how-to of money,
Okay.
you need to examine your beliefs about it. Like he contrasts the phrases, I can't afford it, versus how can I afford it?
Wow. Okay.
One shuts down possibilities while the other sparks creativity and problem solving.
So instead of automatically thinking, I could never buy a house in this market,
Precisely.
you'd ask, what steps could I take to make home ownership a reality?
Precisely. And that simple shift in thinking can be incredibly empowering.
Right.
It's like training your brain to see financial opportunities
Yeah.
instead of just limitations.
Kiyosaki also makes a pretty bold statement in the intro. He says that schools don't actually teach you about money.
Right.
I mean, we learned history, science, literature,
Yeah.
but managing finances,
Right.
not so much.
And that's a gap in our education system with real consequences.
Yeah.
Because think about it,
Right.
even highly educated people can end up struggling financially
Yeah.
if they haven't developed those essential money skills.
That's a good point. I mean, it's one thing to get a great job,
Right.
but if you don't know how to manage your income or invest wisely,
Exactly.
you could still end up in a difficult situation.
Right. Financial literacy is a fundamental life skill.
Yeah.
Just like knowing how to cook or do laundry, it equips you to navigate the complexities of the financial world
Right.
and make informed decisions about your money.
Now, speaking of navigating the financial world, let's talk about Rich Dad's perspective on wealth.
Okay.
Because he had some pretty unique views on what it means to be rich, didn't he?
He did, and one of the things he emphasized was the power of self-identification. He believed that even when you're facing financial setbacks, seeing yourself as rich,
Right.
not necessarily in your bank account at that moment,
Okay.
but in your mindset, was crucial.
So it's about how you perceive yourself, even amidst financial challenges. Interesting. It seems like this book is really challenging a lot of the conventional wisdom around money.
It definitely is. And that leads us to one of Kiyosaki's pivotal moments.
Okay.
His decision to follow Rich Dad's advice, even though it went against societal expectations.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that Robert Frost poem, The Road Not Taken.
Right.
Sometimes you have to forge your own path, even if it's less traveled.
And Kiyosaki's path led him to embrace some pretty unconventional lessons about money, right?
That's right.
He talks about 6 key takeaways he learned from Rich Dad over 30 years.
That's right. And we won't spoil the surprise here.
Okay.
But I will say that these lessons really challenge traditional thinking about wealth, income, and financial freedom.
Yep.
For example, one of the key principles he learned was that rich people don't work for money.
Okay.
They make money work for them.
Okay, now you've really got me curious.
Yeah.
That's such a different perspective.
It is. And I think that's what makes Rich Dad, Poor Dad so compelling.
Okay.
It forces you to question your assumptions and consider new possibilities when it comes to your finances.
Yeah.
Now that we've set the stage with the contrasting mindsets and Kiyosaki's pivotal decision,
Right.
let's delve into those 6 key takeaways from Rich Dad,
Okay.
starting with the importance of financial education.
That sounds like a great place to start.
Yeah.
After all, you can't really build wealth if you don't understand how money works, right?
Right.
So we're diving into the heart of Rich Dad, Poor Dad now.
Okay.
These 6 lessons that Kiyosaki learned from his, rich dad.
Right.
And I have to admit, I'm a little hesitant to even summarize them
Yeah.
because I don't want to spoil the experience of reading the book for our listener.
I understand. But even without giving away the specifics, I think we can explore some of the overarching themes that run through these lessons.
Right.
For example, Rich Dad was a huge advocate for financial education.
Okay.
He believed that knowledge about money is like a superpower.
Right.
It gives you lasting power even as the financial landscape around you shifts and changes.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
I mean, the world of finance is constantly evolving, isn't it?
it is.
New investment strategies, different types of assets.
Right.
If you don't have a solid foundation of financial knowledge,
Yeah,
it's easy to get lost or make costly mistakes.
exactly. It's like having a strong financial immune system.
Oh, okay.
The more you understand about money,
Mhm.
the better equipped you are to navigate the ups and downs of the market,
Yeah.
make informed decisions,
Right.
and protect yourself from those financial pitfalls that can really set you back.
So where do you even begin with building that financial literacy?
Right.
I mean, there's so many books, websites, courses out there.
Yeah.
It can feel overwhelming, especially if you're starting from scratch.
It can be. But I think the most important thing is to find resources that resonate with you
Mm-hmm.
and fit your learning style.
Right.
Some people love diving into dense financial textbooks,
Okay.
while others prefer podcasts or bite-sized articles.
Right.
There's no right or wrong way as long as you're consistently learning
Okay.
and expanding your financial knowledge.
And don't be afraid to ask questions.
Absolutely.
Even if they seem basic,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes those simple questions lead to the biggest aha moments.
Curiosity is key when it comes to financial literacy.
Okay.
Now, another big theme that Rich Dad emphasized
Yeah.
was the importance of understanding the difference between assets and liabilities.
Okay.
He actually challenged the traditional view that your house is an asset.
Wait, really? I think a lot of people would argue that their house is their biggest asset.
Right, and it's understandable why people think that way.
Okay.
But Rich Dad argued that if your house is costing you money
Okay.
through mortgage payments, property taxes, maintenance,
Right.
it's actually a liability.
So instead of adding to your wealth,
Exactly.
it's actually draining your resources.
Exactly. And he wasn't saying that owning a home is bad,
Right, fair.
that you shouldn't buy one.
Right.
His point was that it's crucial to understand how money flows in and out of your life.
Okay.
He wanted people to focus on building assets that generate income,
Got it.
like businesses, stocks, or rental properties.
Things that put money in your pocket
Yes.
rather than taking it out.
And that shift in perspective can be really empowering.
Okay.
It encourages you to think strategically about your finances
Right.
and focus on building long-term wealth,
Yeah.
not just accumulating possessions that might look impressive,
Okay.
but don't actually contribute to your financial well-being.
You know, that reminds me of something I read recently
Mm-hmm.
about the difference between keeping up with the Joneses
Yeah.
and actually building true wealth.
Right.
It's easy to get caught up in trying to have the fanciest car or the biggest house, but those things don't necessarily translate into financial security.
That's such a good point. And I think that's one of the things that makes Rich Dad, Poor Dad so relevant,
Right?
even decades after it was first published.
Right.
It challenges us to rethink those deeply ingrained societal messages
Okay.
about what it means to be successful and financially secure.
Okay. So financial education assets versus liabilities.
Right.
Are there any other major themes we can tease without giving away too much of the book?
Well, another big one was Rich Dad's emphasis on entrepreneurship.
Okay.
He was a big believer in owning your own business as a way to control your income and build financial independence.
Now, I think some people might hear that and think,
Yeah.
well, not everyone is cut out to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
Or they might picture having to quit their job
Yeah.
and take a huge risk to start a company.
And Rich Dad wasn't necessarily advocating for everyone to become a CEO or
Right.
start a massive corporation.
Right.
His point was that there are many ways to generate income outside of a traditional job.
Even something as simple as a side hustle or a freelance gig.
I've actually been experimenting with a side hustle myself recently.
Oh, cool.
It's amazing how even a small amount of extra income can boost your financial confidence
Yeah.
and give you more flexibility.
It really can. And that's what Rich Dad was getting at.
Okay.
Having multiple streams of income
Mm-hmm.
can create a sense of financial security that a single paycheck just can't match.
Right.
Plus, when you're running your own business,
Yeah.
even on a small scale, you learn so much about managing money, taking risks,
Okay.
and building something from the ground up.
Those are all valuable skills, regardless of whether you ultimately become a full-time entrepreneur or not.
Exactly. And that ties back to one of the core messages of Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Okay.
It's about taking control of your financial destiny,
Mm-hmm.
not just passively accepting whatever circumstances come your way.
You know, one of the things that really struck me in the introduction
Yeah.
was how Kiyosaki contrasted his two dads' attitudes towards money.
His poor dad would often say things like, I'm not interested in money,
Mm-hmm.
or money doesn't matter.
Right.
But his rich dad had a very different perspective.
Yeah.
He would say, money is power.
That's such an interesting juxtaposition.
Yeah.
And on the surface, it might seem like Poor Dad was more virtuous or less materialistic.
Right.
But I think Rich Dad understood that money in and of itself isn't good or bad.
Right.
It's a tool, a resource that can be used for positive or negative purposes.
So it's not about being greedy or obsessed with wealth.
Exactly.
It's about recognizing that money can be a powerful force for good in the world.
Right.
It can give you the freedom to pursue your passions, support causes you believe in,
Mm-hmm.
and create a better life for yourself and your loved ones.
Absolutely. And that's why financial education is so crucial.
Right.
It empowers you to make conscious choices about how you use money
Mm-hmm.
and ensures that it serves you rather than the other way around.
So we've touched on financial education assets versus liabilities, entrepreneurship. And I know there's so much more to unpack within those 6 lessons.
Yeah.
But I'm really curious to hear about this pivotal moment that Kiyosaki describes.
Okay.
The moment when he decided to follow Rich Dad's path instead of his poor dad's.
Okay.
He even compares it to Robert Frost's poem, The Road Not Taken.
Yes. It's a powerful analogy.
Right.
He chose the path less traveled,
Mm-hmm.
the path of financial independence and entrepreneurship,
Right.
even though it went against what society expected of him.
And that decision, as Frost wrote, has made all the difference.
Indeed. And I think that's a powerful message for all of us.
Yeah.
When it comes to our finances, we have choices.
Right.
We can stick to the traditional path,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
one that's been laid out for us,
Right.
or we can forge our own way, even if it feels uncertain or unconventional.
Choosing that road less traveled can be intimidating, though, can it?
It can.
There's always that fear of the unknown, that possibility of failure.
Right.
How did Kiyosaki overcome that fear?
Well, that's actually something he addresses directly in one of his 6 lessons from Rich Dad.
Okay.
He talks about how fear can be a major obstacle to financial success
Right.
and shares strategies for overcoming that fear and taking calculated risks.
That's so relevant. I think fear holds a lot of people back from pursuing their financial goals.
It does.
Whether it's starting a business, investing in the stock market,
Right.
or even just negotiating a raise.
It's true. And it's not about being reckless or ignoring risks altogether.
Right.
It's about learning to manage that fear, to assess risks intelligently,
Okay.
and to take calculated steps towards your goals even when it feels uncomfortable.
It sounds like this book is packed with actionable advice,
Yeah.
not just theoretical concepts.
It is. And I think that's another reason why it's resonated with so many people.
Right.
It doesn't just tell you what to do.
Right.
It gives you practical tools and strategies for achieving financial success.
I'm already feeling inspired to revisit my own financial goals and see where I might be playing it too safe or letting fear hold me back.
That's fantastic. And I think that's exactly what Kiyosaki would want readers to take away from his book.
Yeah.
A sense of empowerment, a belief that they can create their own financial future.
Right.
Regardless of their background or current circumstances.
We've covered so much ground already.
We have.
But there's one more element from the introduction that I want to touch on before we wrap up this deep dive.
What's that?
Well, Kiyosaki mentions this really thought-provoking question that his rich dad would often ask him.
Mm-hmm.
If money were no object, how would you spend your time?
Ah, yes, that's a powerful one, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really cuts through all the noise and forces you to confront what truly matters to you.
It does, because when you take away the financial constraints,
Right?
the have-tos and the can't-affords,
Yeah.
you're left with your core values and desires.
Exactly. It's like peeling back all the layers of societal expectations and financial pressures
Right.
to reveal your authentic self.
Yeah.
What would you pursue if you had complete freedom to design your days?
Would you travel the world? Devote yourself to a creative passion?
Right.
Maybe start that nonprofit you've always dreamed of.
The possibilities are endless.
Right.
And by asking this question, Rich Dad wasn't just encouraging Kiyosaki to daydream.
Right.
He was prompting him to align his actions with his values
Okay.
to create a life that was both fulfilling and financially secure.
So it's not about amassing wealth for wealth's sake.
Right.
It's about using that wealth as a tool to live a life of purpose and meaning.
Precisely. And that's what I find so inspiring about Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
It's not just a financial guide.
Right.
It's a blueprint for designing a life you love.
Right.
A life where money serves your dreams, not the other way around.
I love that. So to our listener out there, we're leaving you with that same thought-provoking question.
Okay.
If money were no object, how would you spend your time?
Yeah.
Let that question be your compass as you explore your own financial journey.
And if you're intrigued by the ideas we've discussed today,
Yeah?
we highly encourage you to dive deeper into Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
It's a book that can shift your perspective on money and empower you to take control of your financial future.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back soon with another fascinating topic, ready to unearth those hidden gems of knowledge and spark your curiosity.
Yes.
Until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.